Hey guys, and happy Wednesday. This is week 3, part 1 that goes over the literacy narrative and how to read like a writer. So, part 1 is going to be a little bit more brief because what I want to do is go over your discussion posts a little bit, talk about my father's English, give you guys some reminders. And then tomorrow's video is going to be a little bit more in depth because it's when I'm going to model how to close read and engage with some of your discussion posts that you're going to do tonight. So I don't ever want to front load any of my own analysis and get the idea in your head that that's the right way or to read the reading for the night. So I really want to wait to do all that work until after you turn in your discussion posts so that my analysis collaborates with yours, and so that we can start practicing getting used to this idea that all of your readings are validated and right and have conversations with each other about them. So let me just present this real quick. I'm going to move my face to right here. Okay. So, like I said, what I'm going to do, keep it really brief. I want to go over some reminders and announcements with you guys, talk about your discussion posts and responses from week 1, briefly go over my father's English, and then talk about what you'll be doing for tonight and then what I'm going to do in tomorrow's video. So your initial discussion post for this week is due tonight by 11:59 p.m. And then you have to respond to 2 of your classmates' discussion posts by Friday, September 4th by 11:59 p.m. Another reminder, please be reading the entirety of the emails that I'm sending you and watching these videos because that's the only way for me to communicate with you guys since we're not face to face. So it's really important that you're reading all of those emails so that you know, like, required textbooks, due dates, forms I need you guys to fill out, stuff like that. So I know it's weird because we don't really do email as much in high school, but please get used to checking those every single day and reading all of them. The last thing is that I'm trying everything that I can to make online asynchronous learning as engaging as possible, but it's something that you guys are getting used to. And it's also something that I'm getting used to as a teacher. And I want to make sure that these videos are as helpful as possible and that they're doing everything that you guys need. So I figured that I would make it an option. So this isn't going to be mandatory, but if you guys want to meet synchronously to go over the readings a little bit more, to just chat with each other and have a stronger sense of community, we can do that. And so I've made this Google form that I want you guys to fill out. It has options for meeting weekly, bi-weekly, or even just once a month. And that has a space for you to fill out what day and time would work for you. So if you want to do that, please fill it out and let me know. Even if you don't want to meet synchronously, please still fill out the form so that I can get a tally of who would want to do that and who wouldn't. So that's just an option. And I really look forward to hearing what you guys have to say about it. So if you watch The Office, you get this little meme. Your discussion posts and responses were so incredible. I put, all of them were great, but I just chose a few of them to put snippets up here so that you guys can pause the video and read some of them and kind of start to gauge what a really successful discussion post looks like. But they were really incredible. Some of you offered some readings of the poem that were new to me, like Austin's visual analysis of Haney's father throwing turf over his shoulder, being similar to how someone would like ball up paper when they're drafting and they're frustrated and toss it over their shoulder. That was incredible. And you guys also brought up some really awesome examples of connections between physical activities that you do and your writing process. So a lot of you mentioned cooking and baking and playing sports. And even if I don't do some of those things, the way that you guys described them made it so clear to me how you make those connections. So this is an excellent strategy to do because it helps you figure out, 1, the way you function as a person and what gets you focused and what gets you inspired, and 2, what works for you when it comes to writing. So there is no cookie cutter way to write. If you've been told this, you've been lied to. Because, for example, Ellie shared in her discussion post that she has a sporadic mindset, meaning that she always has a million things going through her head. And so it's really hard to narrow those ideas down and to begin to write a paper. I experience the same thing. So I have severe ADHD, so I'm constantly thinking about 10 things at once. and that's okay. So what you want to do in an example like that, for Ellie's instance and for my instance and for any of you else that experience something like this, is to go ahead and let the 10 things running through your head, just write them down on the paper. Your rough draft is supposed to be rough. Like, just get all of it down. If you need to word vomit on the page, that's perfectly okay. This is the reason why we spend so much time revising. It's the reason why we peer review each other's stuff. And it's the reason why I don't give you a grade on anything as far as like grading your work instead of participation until you turn in your final draft, because no one writes perfectly the first time or even the second time. So it's really good to kind of gauge how you guys function as a person and how this can still work for you while you're doing something like writing that sometimes seems like it's supposed to be really neat and organized all the way through, which it's just not. So there's some examples if you want to pause the video and read them. I made this little post, also pause it because I do want to keep this video short, about elements of an A+. So your discussion post, fully engage with the prompt, around 300 words long. Make sure that you're citing the reading, okay? So if you look back on some of those examples, when someone makes an argument, like Alex or Austin, any of the ones that I posted, and they're offering an analysis of the poem, you want to include the line that you're analyzing or that makes you come to this conclusion about what you think the reading is doing. And you want to put it in quotes and then cite it with the page number or the line number. Your responses were also really good, but these are just some reminders to make them around 100 words long, to fully engage with what their response is. So whether you're agreeing, explain why you agree. If you want to build off their points, so like, yeah, I agree with you, and actually that makes me think about this other thing. Or if you kindly and respectfully disagree. So if you're like, oh my gosh, that's really crazy that you read it this way, this is how I read it. These are all acceptable, and they're really easy ways to respond to each other's thoughts while still engaging with your own analysis. Okay, so you can pause and read this over too. It's pretty much everything I just said. But the important thing is that I've commented on all of your discussion posts. So be sure to read them, because what we're going to focus on is responding to feedback and using that feedback to help cultivate our writing skills. So go back and look at your discussion posts. I'm going to do week 2 and then week 3 in a couple days too. But every week I'm going to be leaving you feedback about what you did particularly well and what you can work on going forward. So it's really important that you guys are reading this feedback and responding to it. And I'm going to look for this over the course of the semester. With that being said, this is how PSA blogs are going to work too. So for those of you who decided to complete a blog on Monday, I've left comments under your posts as well. So please go read them. The reason why reading my feedback is so important is because I want this class to be focused on progress and cultivating your writing skills. So your grades will be on how well you engage with and respond to feedback, not your initial draft. So for instance, anyone who does the PSA blogs, well, you need to, but anyone who did them on Monday, you already got a 100. And anybody going forward, your first PSA blogs, all of you will get a 100. And then going forward after that, your grade will be a reflection of how well you completed the assignment, but also how well you engaged with and responded to my feedback. So I don't want your grades to be focused on how well you can complete something your first time, because there's a lot of things we're doing in this class that might be new to you. So instead, your first PSA blogs, first discussion post, all of that, you get a 100, and then your grade in the future is based off of how well you completed, but also how well you responded to the feedback that I gave you. If you ever have questions about my feedback, please ask. I'm not perfect. I might not explain something super clearly, so please always feel free to ask me about my feedback. My Father's English by Mindy Haskins Rogers. These are some quotes that I pulled that I thought that stuck out to me. This is a good habit to do so that when you go back to readings, you remember what particularly stuck out to you. But the main thing is that this is another example of a literacy narrative that reveals literacy as a personal journey that can often be a narrative of self-discovery. So these are some of the main takeaways that I got from it. But the most important thing is that I think is to be reading these as we approach the literacy narrative assignment, and starting to recognize the ways in which they are similar but also different from each other. So you can write about one specific moment, or you can do what Rogers did, which is to span the course of her life so far. And she traces her literacy narrative from the time when she was a really little girl all the way to adulthood, and how it's affected her literacy like throughout her life, how it affected her when she was younger, how it affected her in school, and then how it affects her now as a teacher. Which is a little bit different than, say, Malcolm X's Learning to Read, where his literacy narrative kind of focuses on this one moment of time when he was in prison, learning to read and what that effect on him was. So this week's discussion post, I added another prompt to it. So you have 2 prompts to choose from. Only pick one of them though. So the 3 readings that they engage with are How to Read Like a Writer, Sonnet 15, and Zero Plastic. So you want to read them in this order too, because How to Read Like a Writer explains how to approach reading Sonnet 15, and then Zero Plastic is inspired by, and in some ways a response to, Sonnet 15. If you read them in that order, then the prompts will make a lot more sense. So for Thursday's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over a few of your discussion posts and engage with them in depth to guide us through how to approach the readings by Neruda and Blackwell, and How to Read Like a Writer, how to read other writings forward, going through the lens of reading like a writer. And then I'm going to model how to close read and read like a writer with Zero Plastic, so that you guys have an example of what that looks like and sounds like, so that you know, 1, how to be doing this going forward with the rest of the readings, and 2, how this will help you going forward with your writing process. Okay, and then just to end it, I put this quote by Stephen King because his novel On Writing a Memoir of the Craft is kind of a novel-length literacy narrative, but it's an excellent memoir about how he became the writer that he is. And he does a really fantastic job of weaving together both his life story and a how-to guide on how to become a better writer. So it's an example of his own literacy narrative, but what's really important about it is that he constantly mentions time and time again that if you want to become a better writer, you must also put the work in to become a better reader, which is what Bunn is talking about in How to Read Like a Writer. So the same way that we tend to mimic accents and body language and other traits of those that we spend a lot of time with, we also begin to mimic the style of those that we read often. So How to Read Like a Writer expands on this, and what Stephen King has to say about it is, you cannot hope to sweep someone else away by the force of your writing until it has been done to you. So instead of trying to instantly just put all the pressure on yourself to make your writing do what you want, the easiest way to do that is to style your own writing based off someone that you also look up to, that you want to sound like, and that makes you feel a way that you want your readers to feel as well. So if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Shoot me an email. I'm going to be having office hours, but based off how soon you guys can get back to me, we might host our first synchronous meeting on Friday. But I will shoot you an email and let you know. But for now, I hope you enjoy the readings.